Hi, also welcome to another day on this JMeter training. And so we are on day 5. So what we will discuss today is like as for the topics. Let us start with client side and server side performance testing concept. Okay. So e- as we know right now that if we put anything, let us say I will be launching www.amazon.com. So we will have a request, correct? And that request goes to the server and response comes, right? Response comes in code format, okay? Code, this format, right? Okay. And once that response comes to the server, then server takes time to render that, then to load all the images, CSS file, and JavaScript file. You can say it's processing or rendering, and then we see this beautiful page. Right? Now, see what happens is there are three kind of response times. Okay, three kind of response time that we have to understand. First one is when the request is going and it's going to the server. Server means the application server, right? And when the response is coming, which is in code format, remember. So it, let us say whatever time it took, suppose 1 second, suppose for an example, or let us call it as a T1. Request went, response came, and so this time, let us say it took 1 second, or let us call it as a T1, okay, time 1, right? So this time is called server response time, right? Because server has sent the response. So this is called T1, server side response time. Very simple, the response which comes in code. After that, what happens? Once the response came here, then processing starts. So in that, two things are there. While doing the processing, we all have this uh, embedded resources getting loaded. So they are first time they will be called uh, from the source only, the source code that we see. So all the information are embedded in this one, right? I have shown you. That's why these are called embedded resources. Why they are called embedded resources? So they are there. So while processing whatever the images and other thing are there, they will be downloaded very fast, and then they will be processed, right? So that's why we see the downloading of them and their size also. Okay, so this thing, uh, for downloading, yeah. So this thing which is there for downloading, the total time that takes, let us say some time, right? Some, let us say whatever, suppose 2 seconds it take for an example. Let us call it as T2, time 2. This is an example I'm saying, right? It can be anything. We do not know. It all depends, right? So you got the idea. This is the time for the response coming to the response from the server coming to the user in the code format. Okay, this time. This is called server response time. Then we have a time once the response has came and when the processing has begun or rendering. This all is downloaded, right? All thing. So there is there will be total time for that. Right? So that let us call it as T2. And for an example, 2 seconds. Okay. After once they are downloaded, then immediately they will be processed also, right? And we see the page. So that is a separate time for that. So let us say that is 1 second and T3. Let us call it as a T3. Fine. T3. Okay. You're getting the now understand this thing, this this both activity, this T2 and T3, both activity happens on the user end. Okay. It has nothing to do with the server. Fine. This is what we have to understand. Many people are confused what is client side, what is server. So this stuff that is happening, server has already sent you the response. Now, whatever the things that processing and other thing that is happening at the user side, at the user end by the browser. Okay. So that's why this part is called client side activity. The client side. Here client is who? The user. Okay. Understand. Client means user. Server, client server, right? So client is the user. So user side activity or client side activity. So this all activity happens at the user, right? Now understand very minorly what I'm saying. This will help you very much because many people are confused this system. Now see, uh, in performance testing, most of the time people bother about this time that you see, right? This server side time. Okay, because this is where the main load goes. Like understand that 1 lakh people or 10 lakh people or 1 million people, right, sending this Amazon.com launching uh, a home page, suppose per hour basis, right? So this request is going, and for every one of them, the server has to send the response, and the response will be in code format, right? So at a time, on the server, which is going to create the load, this stuff is going to create the load, right? The real load, and server has to respond to everyone, to all 10 lakh people. Right? Understand? And he will be responding with the code, this response, which will be going as a code to all those users, right? All those 10 lakh users, right? So this is the main thing which is impacting the server activity, correct? So that's why, and that is where the load, you see, that is where the load is. Okay, so at a time, here load is what? At a time, so many users are sending, and server has to send this response to all of them. Right? So that is what it's handling that much request, right? At a time and sending the response. So it's this is the point where server is engaged, and we are here. Performance testing means what? Test the server, right? That whether how much user load it can take, in how much time it is sending the response. Correct. Server. Focus on the server, right? So that's why this is server thing, and stress is there on the server. So in most of the cases, people focus on this part only, this time only, or you can say this is a server time, server response time, server side thing, you can say, right? Got the point? Okay. So people focus on this one in most of the cases. Now, understand this very. Once server has sent the response to all of them, understand, right? Suppose 10 lakh users have launched to Amazon.com. So that is the what 10 lakh people is at your door, right? Think like that in a very simple manner. 10 lakh people are at your door want to get something from you, right? So you see how much load it is there, and server has to respond, right, to everyone. Correct. Now, once server has responded the data, the response to all of them. So what you are doing with the data is one user actually. That is not multiple user. That is the main thing we have to understand. Many people confuse. Again, I'm saying here, how much load is that? 10 lakh load. Server has sent the response to all of them. Now, once the response has went to each of the browser, each people browser, the browser that is rendering is separate. No? It's all different device. So at a time, if you observe, while rendering this, only one user is doing. Here, 10 lakh load is there. We receive the response. Server has handled that, let us say, for 10 lakh people. He sent the response or whatever in the code. Now, when the code format went to each people individual device of 10 lakh people, this thing is happening for one user. It's not happening for 10 lakh user. What the point? Because it is happening on client side, on the user side. So at a time, suppose we are here 12 people, right? So you will open amazon.com, let us open same time. We all will be sending the request, right? 12 people. And server will respond we will all get the response in code form. After that, this rendering thing that is happening, it is individual to every laptop, right? It has nothing to do with server, correct? And it has nothing to do with load also. Because once that comes to the client end, the client side, it's just one user activity at a time happening, and that whatever processing and load that is happening in the client machine, in the user machine, right? User machine, that we have to understand. This all activity is happening on user machine. Here server is not stressed. Server has do not any impact. Server has to send what it has sent to you, right? This thing it has done. Now this thing on user side, and that too here load is not there. Just for one user to understand this very okay. So right, and whatever the, let us say your hardware are very fast, your processor are very fast, you'll see this happening very fast. You have a good RAM. If your hardware is slow, laptop hardware, right, RAM is slow, you'll see this happening slow. It's normal. We have seen, right, why devices are fast, why we prefer good processor, good RAM, right? Nowadays everything, right, people are buying 16 GB mobile. Why? So that the processing at the device and anything, you play a game, you do anything, can be fast, right? If that RAM and other things slow, you do anything, it's slow. That is the reason, right? So this all thing has nothing to do with the server. It's happening at user end, and every user or machines it will happen, for all 10 lakh people. So at a time, it's just for one user happening, one user for me at a time. You will be having your on, right, in your laptop. This will be happening. Some people all that the person laptop this will be happening, right? It's not like that in my laptop only for all 10 lakh people this processing happening. No, right? If in my laptop, if the processing for all 12 people will happen, then I'll consider it load. Na? Understand, right? But in my laptop, it's just for one user. Your laptop, your thing. That people laptop, that thing, right? But this thing, server, this stuff, that request came, server has to handle and server has to respond. This is at a time 10 lakh on the server machine or the server, yeah, whatever server, you know what server I have told you. So at a server, it is uh, handling 10 lakh and sending the response. Once response is coming, this rendering is not happening for 10 lakh in my laptop. In my laptop, it is just happening for me only, one user. In your laptop, it's happening for you. In other people, so at a time, it how much user load? One. If in my laptop it was happening for 10 lakh people, or let us say if in we are 12 people, right? And in my laptop, it is if it this rendering is happening for all 12 people, then I'll say okay, 12 people user load is there. We can consider that a load testing, right? Because it has to do for 12 people, but in fact it is just for one user, right? Every people has one user, and that is why this stuff is called client side, user specific. Understand? Now, okay, so this all thing happens on user end, on user defined, and that's for one user. So that is the reason people are the more focus is there on the server testing, because main load happens here. We are main load happens on the server side, and we focus on server side load testing or the response time of the server. Here also we focus. It's not like that. In beginning, if we have heard that one attendee was there, he was more focusing on client side, that I want to learn client. Yeah, that is there. But we do not do load testing for client side activity. Okay, it's just for maximum one user or 10 users. That's what. Because this stuff doesn't happen for in real time. If you see this activity, this client loading the embedded resources, loading the processing, this is called client side activity, right? Client side. So in real time, if you see, it's happening just for one user at a time. Okay. So that's why maximum 10 user we can focus on load testing of embedded resources. Okay. Otherwise, we do not focus on load testing of embedded resource, the client side activity. Now in client side activity, and that performance testing, what it is done, like that's what, how much time this all downloading of them has taken, right? How much time the rendering and processing of all of them has taken, and so in total how much time this whole has taken. Then we see the uh, this page. So that is what is considered, or that is what we focus on. Okay. And suppose maybe so you'll see they are fast, then why we focus on. Sometime it can happen that any of the embedded resources or any of the JavaScript call takes more time to load. Okay. Like basically the JavaScript, they are more problematic. The JavaScript files, they take little more time to load or process themselves. So here if you see here JavaScript call, it's not taken much time. It's very fast only, but sometime we have observed that uh, they takes more time to process themselves. Some images will be there which will be very bulk in size, and they will be taking more time to load while processing, right? So that is what we focus on, that part in the client side performance. Got the point? Got the difference, right? So we have three kind of response time, and this part is user specific. So this is generally not considered as a load testing, and we don't, because this activity happens on user side of user. And what we focus in that, you got that, right? Like how much time the embedded resources total getting downloaded, and then in how much all are processed and that website is getting ready. We focus on, let us say, any embedded resource AJS file taking much time to load itself. Obviously, we will get this slow, right? Response will be there. Response has, if you see, I think I've told you, I've shown that long back also. Server has sent the response. Uh, will send the response very fast, but while downloading, maybe something can stuck. Embedded resources can stuck, right? So that's why these two are two different things. Both are two different things. Yes, server has responded you correctly in very quick manner, but while processing, the things can go worse. Maybe anything here, they do not load fast, they do not get processed fast, right? So that's what we focus on. Okay, so that is what client side and server side, right? And why we focus on server side, because real load is at server end, right? And that's why we focus on that. This is, if you see, it's one user at a time, right? Now
Yes, sir, we have this checkbox disable cache. Is it like if we don't disable it, then the embedded resource will take less time to load in our client system? What is the role of
so
this checkbox?
yeah, so this actually for showing the stuffs to you in this dev tool, I have checked this. So I'll tell you what it does. Do not worry. We have to think many things when doing the client side. You have to do many. We have to think. or we have to take care of many things. So I'll come to that. So first let me explain this. So you got the idea, right? So we have a request, we have a response. So this response, it took, let us say, 1 second, and 1 second, right? 1 second, and let us say it's to T1. This is server side. More focus on this. Once the response comes here, after that all are loaded, the processing starts. So it took 2 seconds for all of them. Call it as T2. When all have loaded parallelly, they will all be processed. Okay, so that is one time. 1 second. That is T3. So this T2 and T3 are happening on user end, on user side, and this T1 is main related to the server. So, and as I said, mostly we are in performance testing, the focus on the are on the server. When the people talk about client side, then or they want to test something on the client side, right? Client side you are and hearing. So that is where this thing comes in picture. And what we test in that I have explained, right? What testing, correct? And we do not do more load test. It's not feasible, or it's not. You can say it's not a smart uh, thing to load test this for more than 10 users, because in real time this is happening per laptop or per device basis, one user at a time, right? So it's not a smart thing. Maximum 10 user you can test if you want to that also, otherwise not required, because in real time it's just happening per device, uh, user one user, right? If when we can test this for load testing, if the same rendering is happening for 12 user, or it's happening for 10 lakh user at my laptop, right? Then only it called load testing, right? But it's not like here. It's happening, right? Here suppose with 12 people try to access Amazon. So Amazon is handling that load and responding. So that 12 people load is going there, or let us say 10 lakh people load is going there, and the whole processing, right? Reading the request and sending the response to all of them is what the the thing is happening at server end, right? So server is tackling and responding to all the users, right? Or thing like that. One people is searching out of 10 lakh people. Some are searching headphones, some are searching keyboard, some are searching laptop. All are searching at same time, right? Suppose thing like so server has to deal with them. No? Suppose out of 10 lakh people, 2 lakh people search for laptop. So he has to give that laptop response to them. 2 lakh people search for mobile, some iPhone. So he has to give that iPhone related response to them, right? So see how this is called real processing, right? That is the server is dealing with, correct? Getting the idea. And that these all 10 lakh are at same time, but 2 lakh are doing something, 2 lakh doing something, 1 lakh is doing something, another 1 lakh is doing something. So server is dealing with that. See that functionality. It's not only this Amazon. And this take I have taken this as an example, but think in broader way. The 2 lakh people searching a laptop, 2 lakh searching iPhone. In that also 1 lakh is searching Samsung mobile, 1 is lakh is searching iPhone mobile, right? 1 lakh is searching something else, another 50,000 searching else. So in a total 10 lakh, but they are doing different activity, and server has to respond them what they are searching, right? In correct way also that we have seen. So you see that is what real process, that is real load testing that server has to do. This stuff is on user side, on user end. So uh, so this generally, if people know the thing, client side is not tested for more uh, users, not more than 10. Right? Even if you do for 1 or 5, that's fine. But this is where real thing happens. Okay, server side. So main focus is here. Now, so these two part are this. So when we add them both, all three. So when you just focus on the server side, generally we do that. So it's a T1, right? T1 time one, or server side response time, or server response time. Right? Then when we add this all T1, okay, T1 plus T2 plus T3, then only we see this page fully loaded, right? Because it's combination of all. But in that also, I just segregated These two part happens on client side. This is real service. When you add them all, it is called end-to-end response time. Understand? End-to-end response, end-to-end response time. When you consider both, right? Now, uh, yeah, this thing when you want to know this stuff, uh, that will come as client part, and it is not tested for more than 5 or 10 users, right, at a time. Even it is not in serious load test also. So as I told you, and these are the two things are there. One is retrieving the embedded resources or downloading them. It's called retrieving. A technical word is there called retrieving or downloading, and then processing. Right. Two things. Now, coming to the capability of JMeter that many people are saying JMeter can't do, JMeter can't do this. No, JMeter can do this. JMeter can do two things. First, server side, it can happily, there is no lag in JMeter to do this. Okay, this very with 200% capability JMeter will do. Plus this also JMeter will do. If you try to find the T2 also, it will. I'll show you now going forward the session how to get this done as well. Retrieving the embedded resources. Only this part has a less capability in JMeter. Get it done. Right? Understand? So till this part also JMeter has capability, and I can show you how to get it done. Okay. So see, there are two different things. When you just focusing on server side testing and more focus on server side response time, then we do not consider this whole thing. Only when requirement is there, then only the two things comes in picture, right? And in that also, JMeter has full capability of doing this. Full capability. It's not like limited. Full capability. The only limitation is here, little, right? You got the idea. Fine. So if we add all three, it's total end-to-end response time. It is called total response time. And only when you focus on the first part, so only server-side response time. And if you just focus on T1, T2, again it's a combination of little bit of server and little bit of client side, right? T1, T2. So see, whenever I'll be showing this in JMeter, obviously when we will be focusing on T1 time will be less because the server response comes very fast. And when we add it with T2, obviously response time will increase, right? That is a natural thing. So that time do not get confused why it's increasing, because it has to increase, right? Because here we are just focusing on having the response. Then we are adding that also with T2, the processing. And again, I said this thing can be tested for 10,000, 20,000, depending on how much user servers handle. This stuff is not tested for that because same, right? Same thing that I explained. Maximum for 10 user you do that, otherwise you don't do that. It's not a smart work to do it for more than 10 users. Not worthy also because it has nothing to do with server. Now, yeah, again. So, as I said, one more thing I'll show you immediately. Suppose one example. So if you see here, in browser, you'll observe two times here. Okay. This time that is in red, you see, it took 2.44 seconds. So it took 2.44 seconds for this whole page to load. So it's total this time that you see, and that too at, see, we cannot consider this as a as a what do you say, as a benchmark value. Benchmark value means like okay, Flipkart is taking 2.44. No, we cannot do like, because as I said, it's total end to end. End to end thing depends on many things, like your laptop processing capability, the RAM, okay, the internet speed, right? Internet speed. If your internet slow, you'll obviously see the browser, uh, uh, all this thing happening slow, right? Correct. So suppose this I have open at 30 Mbps of speed, right? And that too also meeting is also going on. So we see that time. If you have 100 Mbps of speed, you can have this time, or a very good laptop with modern processor, and you can see this faster, right? Because this is total time. And what is total time? Just I explained, right? Total time is the sum of T1. What is T1? Hope you understand. That sum of T2 and sum of T3. Okay. So that is whole load time that it says source for that page. Next thing, the DOM content load that you see, right? It will be always less than this. You can observe anywhere. So this, as I said, total time. When the first response came in the code format, then when all downloaded and when all processed, the whole website when it fully it has shown. That is what we see in the red. This time is actually after having the response, which will be T1, and then consolidating a web page frame. Okay, some frames are there, iframe, and many things are there when we work on page. So that time, so that time, that you can also consider a little bit of T2, T2. So the iframes and other thing are only loaded when JavaScript files are processed, and JavaScripts are part of embedded resources. Okay, so it's a lit. T1 will always be there. T1 is the best, right? It will anyhow. It has to be the until response come how you are processing, right? So T1 is all. Then T2 almost some of the T2 you will observe that total time will be this, right? Especially the JavaScript and the CSS file that time, and it will be always less. And then after this whole processing, and that's why you see this little uh, greater. Now, the T1, so you see, this is what I told you, it's a combination of T1, T2. So now you got the idea that T1 will always be less than this value. T1 you will very rarely get it, but yeah, you can get it here. Suppose if you just go to top and see the Flipkart request, there are two requests to Flipkart. How much it took? 1.26 seconds. Just took 1.26 seconds. Here you can see, this is the request that went, right? And the response came, I just said, and the response will be in code format. You see, yeah, right? T1 is always very less. So it took 1.26 seconds for have the response, and then that is T1, and then after that little processing happened, and the embedded resources got came in picture, and the CSS file and JavaScript file of the embedded resources they got loaded, structured. So that is part of T2, and hence you see it will be little larger than this, right? And then after that whole T3 thing happened, and whole page we see here. So that is this time. Understand the point, right? Okay. So T1 time you will not see here. You will see with that particular request only. T2 time you can see here. In T2 that also it doesn't consider whole, right? Not whole, but some of the main important embedded resources. Then CSS file and JavaScript file it adds up, and it shows that is what DOM content loaded. And when full page got loaded, we see that load time which is in red. So see this
So when you're
T3.
talking about so when you're talking about T1, T2, T3, you're talking about any specific request like a T1 only for the request that is going like a flipkart.com, and T2 is what?
T2 is the retrieving of embedded resource, the download,
And T3 then?
processing of them.
Uh, Means coming from the response server side, the response.
No, no, this will be processed now. This whole thing will be processed. The JavaScript is there and anything. So whole thing will be processed and then we see this, right? Processing, processing. Right? Understand?
Okay, for the load is T1, T2, T3, and the DOM content loaded is only T1. The request that the two requests that we are sending 301 and 200, the first two, the DOM content loaded. That is the the addition of these two requests.
Focus here, huh? This is a website. I'm going to show you this. See, a response came, right? But uh, it happened little fast. Very minutely, we could have this has to be simulated. It happens so fast that becomes difficult for. Very simple website, but good concept to understand this concept. You see, request went and response came, but you downside, you focus here. It took little time to process that. Still, it was revolving like this. So you just focus them again. Next time, I'll try to do. This small. Okay, so I have made this small. Just focus on downside. See, we have a response, but you see
Yeah,
downside. That circle was revolving.
nice. Yeah,
But before that, we had the response here, right?
yeah.
Huh?
Yes,
So
sir.
we
Yes,
had
sir.
the response, but this this is the thing. This thing takes time. This is called processing. We already had the response, which is what which is T1. Once we
Mm-hmm.
had the response, this all you see embedded resources which are CSS file, JavaScript file, they will be retrieved or they are called downloading. Huh? In technical form, it is called retrieving. They will be retrieved and then they will be processed. Processing means just you can say code is compiled. So what is compiling? Compiling means have you seen any written any code and have you observed compilation? It takes some
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
No? It whole read it, reads whole code and then it will give you the output. So that is called we are called compiling processing, right? Code is getting. So this all thing are code, na? Actually, this is code. The JavaScript, everything is code. So that code has to be processed. That has to be rendered. embedded resources are rendered, and these codes are processed, and then we see that. So even though if you observed, if you have order, response was already there in code format, but then why it was taking time? Here it was like revolving little bit, and then only this whole thing got loaded. Request is only one. Na? This is the main request. Other all are
Okay.
embedded. There is no other requests. Okay, here only one request is there. This one.
Yes.
So one
So
transaction,
pro-
one request. But you see, uh,
so
so you got the
processing
idea
is
what is
like
processing.
rendered. Yeah, processing is like a rendering the page, like a web page that we are fully displaying, like a with after the
Ah,
processing. That is the one. Okay. Is the JMeter can capture the rendering stuff also? No, right? It only can capture the request T1 and T2. J JMeter can do the processing also time, the T3
that's what
stuff.
I was saying that, and that's what I was saying. I clearly told that T1 very JMeter 100% capable. T2 also 100% capable. Only in T3, it
That is
lacks.
client
Okay,
side.
it lacks. Uh,
Mm.
Not total client side. See, client side is of two things. Again, here you have to understand.
No, but T3 is totally from the client side, right? How come the client is every laptop is means every user, one user is going to see this web page. So it always only client side that is performance is happening, the web page displaying.
Uh,
How come it will
uh,
happen in the server side? So we are always testing T1 and T2. Um, Am I correct, or we are doing the T3 also?
mhm. We are not doing T2 also. First, understand this: what is T1, what is T2, what is T3. T1 you got, what is this?
T1 I got it. T2 is the embedded resources that also we are doing in the client side, and the T3 definitely is the point of in the client
Client
side
side.
only. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
for
these
why
two
not
parts.
the T2? One second. Why not T2? Because all the download, suppose we have this image if in the AWS, then we are loading it right from the server. Then we need to test it whether it's taking it, coming it in a correct response time with like if
So
me.
that's what I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. So first you got the idea what T2 and T3 are user and activity. Even if you
Yes, sir.
download, the retrieving and downloading, who is doing that? Browser is doing, right?
Yeah.
You are sending just
Client.
one request. Now that is very minor thing you have to understand. You are sending only
Hmm.
one request. Are you sending the request for this?
One request to the server. Yeah.
Yeah, you are sending only one request, right? This request. Are you sending
Yes.
these all requests to the server? You are not sending. Hmm? Correct or not?
But the
No, no. But
but
first tell me. I'll explain that. Do not worry. Are we sending the
yeah,
request for this?
no.
No. Whenever a user is doing anything, not only this, you click anywhere, right? We have seen that. I have told any user action is going to generate a one HTTP HTML request, or let us say two or three HTTP HTML request to this. They are called main request, right? Which will bring the main source code, right? For this, we are not making the request. These all information are embedded in this. They are not separate. First understand. These are they separate calls? No. These all information about this file are there in this source code. You take anyone. You take anyone
Yes.
like even I've shown that you can try. Let us say if you saw the bootstrap mini.css file, this is there in this source code. The main source code which has came. Correct. You can search that.
Yes. We
It
have
is
a
there.
link there. Yeah.
We have a link there. So the main one is this. Okay.
Hmm.
Now who is downloading them? Only the browser is downloading them. When first this is received, so that is pure T1. Got the idea? Then after this is received, the browser is downloading all the CSS file, JS file, embedded resources first time. Remember, this is the concept we have to understand. It is not done every time. It's done first time. Okay. Because yesterday I told you caches are there. So when we did first time, after that, these all are going to be stored in the browser, most of them, 70 to 80% of them will be stored in browser. And again, if you are redoing anything, so are they getting called from the server? They will not be called, correct? Got the idea? That is
Yeah.
why that's what we have to think from many perspective. Many people are confused here only. First time you visited, yesterday only I clearly saw. First time you visited the website, 80% of these will be actually you are not sending request. First of thing, second thing, these are embedded there, and browser does that. Once we visit the website, these all will be downloaded. Most of them, 80% of content will be downloaded and stored. There is two things: temporary and permanent. Okay, so permanent it was showing as a disk, if you remember yesterday's session, and temporary was memory. Temporary means till browser is open, they are there. Once browser is closed, they will be removed. And memory one, I can show you that. Do not worry. And then disk is permanent. Means again, if you have closed the browser and again you are visiting, they have also some expiry time, but till then, let us say till 7 days, you will keep on visiting Flipkart, they will keep on loading from the browser one. So how it is a total server side? Is it a total server side activity? It is not total server side activity, it's just one time activity happening. But the main request which is bringing the main response which is changing every time, that is the main thing, right? That is the main thing. So every time you do anything, whole response changes. We see different pages on Flipkart. Also you keep on browsing anything, so that response changes. That is not stored. Only the content, the font or some images is stored. So this is the point. It's not pure server side. It's one time server side.
Yes, it's a
Okay.
one-time server side. Yeah.
Ah. Now again, many thing I'll your concept will clear. Do not worry. And plus, who is making the call for this? Browser is making the call. Okay. Now, so you got the idea. So let us say this is T2. Downloading of them is okay T2, and then we have uh, the whole processing, and that way you could have seen the it was little slow, and then whole page came, right? Fine. We had only one call. Even on Amazon or Flipkart, I'll show you this thing happen. Now, as I told you, so this time that you see, if you see this time, see as I told you, this will always be higher. This is always higher. This is little less than that, and this is very less than that. This is the main request which went. I have made it very small. Hope you guys can see. Let me make it bigger. Okay. Yes. Plus. Oh, you see now. This is the request, the main request that went, and server came. Even if you see the waterfall model here, see, until and unless the response come, the downloading of embedded resources doesn't happen. See, the request fired, and once the request has completed, means that that response has came. Which response? Uh, this response, the code, right? So until unless that has came, then only the downloading has started. You see, server has started them downloading, and there is also a number for them. This number will be generally 8 to 10. 8 to 10 will be downloaded at a time. At a time means it will open a request to download them 8 to 10. So you can count also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. See, 10, 11, something are there. They will not be more than 10, 12. Some figure will be there between 8 to 10, 12 max. And then again separate, it will send it for separately again in combination. So this is also a thing. Okay, you have to know this. So website, the not website, this browser, they opens a parallel download for these embedded resources. That to 8 to 10 or in some cases 12 will be downloaded. Downloaded means they will not be downloaded in same time, because if you see their finish time, it's all different for them. You can check here. But their sending of the request, if you see, that will be at same time. Okay, fine. So now coming to this, so this time is the pure server response time. That is T1, right? After that, we had this all downloaded, right? Especially the CS and some of the image, the main image, and then the JavaScript files, and then it becomes T1 and plus T2, and then we see this. right? We see this. So you see little bit more than this, correct? Okay. And then after whole full processing, we have this. So this is total end-to-end time. This is almost T1 plus T2, almost. We cannot say all because some of the uh, images they get downloaded late. But yeah, almost T1 and T2. And this is pure T1, right? Now coming to your question, right, as you said that why we do not focus on, because I answered this, right? This is one-time activity happening. Browser does that. We just send a request one time. And this request will be sent, let us say 10 lakh people sending this. So they all will be sending this 10 lakh, right? And server will be responding. So that is pure load. But when this response is coming at the user end, so it is the browser is first time downloading them. Okay. And again, since you download and keep it at end, right? A browser opens the request. So the T2, since I told you that your question also, since it downloads, we it is a part of it is not total part of server because server side, but yeah, it is a part of server side, right? And that is why uh, JMeter is fully capable of doing the T1 also and T2 also. We can have that, right? But only T3 part JMeter has limitation. So you can get this in JMeter this time, you can get this time in JMeter, you will have a problem in getting this time in JMeter, and that is where people integrate with JMeter Selenium WebDriver stuff to get this time, right? But again, as I told you, this people, there is unnecessary thing to performance test this. People think we have to test it for this stuff for 1002. No, once this is downloaded, first we have to, this is only one time activity, and then all thing is happening at client side, so it's just for one user happening, right? So not more than that. Even if you want to test maximum 10 user is a good, 5 to 10 user, that's it, otherwise not required. Even if you understand this thing very clearly, it's not required. Okay, main is this only. Because one time, even if you download this, they will be saved and repeatedly they will be called, so it's not going to impact the server. Now why we focus on this that client? So this T2, again, as you said, it's not completely part of server. You got the idea why, right? And T3 is anyhow it's a pure client side, right? So these two times, T2 one time only they get downloaded, and then they are repeatedly called from the browser only whenever we visit the website or any page, right? And yeah, and why we focus on this? So focus generally we do to check, like let us say one image just for one user. I did, and you see it's taking 1.68 seconds. And here is something. Maybe it's not related to that. Maybe it's not related to that website. Then dummy sampler.png, I think. So one image you see. The image, their size are also, their size is less, right? This one. So this we have, this is what we find in, when we do user side. Even though if you see the size is very less for this image, time is very more to load. And then this is one image. Even if you see this size is very less compared to other, we have more other stuff which size is more than that, but their response time are less, and it is taking 1.5, right? So when this is thing we focus in client, that any CSS file, any embedded resources, any image takes more time or what. So since it all happens on user end, doesn't require more number of user to do that, right? 5 are fine, 10 are fine, because at a time if you observe only one user is doing that one time activity, is happening at user side. Okay, but again, user rendering is important, as I said. Like, okay, server has responded me in 1.68 seconds, but again, if it is taking total 3.4 seconds in user side, we have to focus, right? So that is what we focus. You see, like one image is, even the size is very small, taking very more time. this also taking almost very more time, right? So this is what we focus in client side performance test. So you got the idea,
So
very clear idea.
yes,
Hmm.
sir. So when you say T2 is taking one-time activity, if we disable the cache checkbox that we have, then every time I am loading it from the server, right?
Hmm. Hmm. But in
Then it
browser
will do
that is,
multiple times.
but in browser when we do na, it's not disabled, it's enable.
It's enabled.
That
Okay.
functionality is not. That functionality is always there. You cannot disable in browser. There is not no. This is only for understanding this. This setting that you do, na, it only applies here. Here, network type. It
Okay.
doesn't apply here. Just to understand this thing, right? If I want, that is why this is a dev. This is the developer tool. It is not normal browser. It is extended something uh, for uh, for a techie. For a techie to do many things. You can do many things here. Many steps are there.
Mhm.
So Uh, this is just for understanding the things for us, like who want to go in depth. So if you disable the cache, right, will even let us say, I'll disable the cache. You can try. Ready? Yeah. Let me do that.
Okay. So in JMeter, it always be enabled. The cache is always enabled. Then right? Or we
Where
can
you will
check
enable
it.
that?
I mean to say in JMeter, do we enable that with enable we will do the test or with disable or with both we will do that?
No,
Or it's
that's
automatic?
not wrong. First of all, that when we are only focusing on server side response time, right? Until unless there is a clear requirement to test this, even if you want to test this stuff, not more than 10 users will be doing. So when we say pure load test and other thing, we focus on only the server response time, right? That
Okay.
time this stuff's not come in picture. So no need to worry about it. So
Mm-hmm.
nothing can disable, enable, right? When you want to test the response time by retrieving the embedded resources, and then let us say for 10 users, then there is a special component called cache manager you have to use, and automatically cache manager saves the thing, like how a browser saves. That is for that purpose only cache manager is used. Otherwise, it's not. Plus, we have to simulate that stuff also, like how a browser is opening a request, that downloading of them six at a time or eight at a time, like how I have just shown it. Right? Those all things we simulate when we download, okay, when we do that kind of activity. It's not only just cache. It's we have to simulate this activity also, the rendering of the embedded resources. There is a this mechanism. So when you do the thing, you do it proper or you do not do. So that setting is there, get it done. So even JMeter, even if that will also download. So you have to make it in realistic way, that at least download 10, 8 to 10 at the same time, and then calculate the response time. That is stuff is there, right? Okay. So one more concept I'll show you only for those people who are interested, because understanding this, doing a client side thing is very, you have to understand many things. It's not very simple. So let us say about cache that I told you, how it's only one time activity. So understand this. I'm going to show you one page, the normal activity, how the normal things happen. Cache obviously it's disabled in browser. So, so let us say I'll go to JPEG. This you can try in any website, in even in Flipkart also this will be there, but it's many there are that huge list is there. So that's why I'm showing it here. So suppose I'll go to this page. When I visited this page, see this embedded resources, it got called first time. We see the time also and size also, right? It has been called and their downloading has also happened. And now they have been saved in my cache. Okay, they have been saved. Now let us say any next page if I go. So suppose I'll go to sign in page. So I'm sending a new request, but you'll observe the embedded resources for that request will be downloaded from the cache because many embedded resources are matching on the corresponding pages. Okay, so if they are common, that is the nature of this embedded resources. That's why this cache thing is there. Okay, suppose I'll sign in here again. If I go going to the next page again, you see. So for the page is changing, right? Request is also changing, but the embedded resources related to that. See, if they are same, server is not calling them. They it is just retrieving from the browser. Okay, right? Like that issue. So this thing happens in other website also. So that's why I called it. It's one-time activity. Suppose we'll visit a Flipkart. So you see, it load first. See, all are downloaded except these 3 4 it's saying. It's actually it's not from Flipkart also. It's from some other. So ignore these 3 4. So I think from some other resource. So you see all here they got first downloaded. We even see the response time, the size. Like now, let me just browse and go to image. I have to have the electronics. Suppose all. So you see, whichever required are called, but whichever are used, they are not called. On the again page change, request change, but you see, so you see that is ignore. So you see this part, this is called. So right, so many embedded resources will be in such way which will be recalled. Right, they will not. They are not getting every time called from server. That is why this cache stuff is there. That is the main thing. On same page also, same website also, on many pages when you visit, many caches thing, the embedded resources will be common. So that's why when we first time visit it, they get saved. And when you repeatedly visiting its own page also, many other pages, so they gets called from the browser only and saving the time, saving the load on the server. And that is the reason, right? So that is why this cache thing is there. This cache is important. You see, so many of them, they didn't got called. See, so it's in real time, right? In front of you only. Doing. So this is the important concept to have. So that's why I said T2 is not pure. server side activity. It's just one time. So, uh, so if requirement is there that you want to have a response time with T1 and T2 also, we can do that. Can always do that. The DOM content that you see, it's almost combination of that only. And the load time that you see here, which is in red, it's combination of all, right? And T1 now obviously will observe for that request there only, correct? So this is there. Now, suppose if you are implementing T2 also, there is a way to do that. It's not like you are just simply implementing. Many things are there. You have to use cache manager. That downloading, as I told you, right? 8 or 10 of them gets downloaded parallelly. So all these things we have to simulate. We have to make it with the good practices, how it's done in browser, right? So these things are there. And as I said, since this thing is not always server side activity, so focus is not more on that. So it all depends on your requirement whenever you are testing. If client generally we 90% of time we are just focused on this. Okay. In 10% cases, we focus on client side activity, right? So you got the idea how to get everything, right? Now, in our Google Chrome, we have a lighthouse here, which analyze any page, right? And it gives everything. So even as I said, if you want to know more on the T3 part, T3 part uh, gets generally for one user is fine, or 2, 3 user because it's pure user side activity, and you want to focus on that, right? So as an open source tool, you can use this also, right? It's lighthouse thing. It will give you very detailed idea of every page and the components there. It will download, see it's automatically doing that, checking that. So in that show you file perspective, which takes what time, right? The detailed report. Like so, I think that some of the CSS file or some JavaScript file is. If you click on each of them, it will tell you that some of the JavaScript files are taking more time, where you can reduce. So whole analysis. Okay. So right, mostly. So this column is focus on the JS file. Likewise, wherever it has found error, it will tell you after the error. You can just click and just read. So this part, the T3 part, if you want to focus, that is the processing, right? Because downloading already done, T1 already done, T2 already done. T3 is the processing, which we do not know, or even the JMeter lacks. So you can take help from it. It will tell that. So both all three work will be done, right? Using these all are open source thing. Open source means free. There is no license, another thing required. So this way, okay, this way we can achieve all thing, right? And so this whole session went on this only. So next we'll be talking about architectures. So do not worry, I'll show you in JMeter also going forward. We'll see how T1 generally it is done, then how to get the T2 also done. in JMeter with all those best practices which I told you, right? Retrieving the embedded resources, that to in correct a way, right? Like how to simulate that downloading of 10 at a time, right? All those things. See. And for T3, if you want, we had the lighthouse. Okay, mm, that's for today. Fine then. Any questions? No question then. Okay.
No.